Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 2 of In Studio Yap with me, Nicole. So obviously there's music playing because we don't play commercials all the time. So I figure I'd take a couple minutes and share one of my favorite stories, not only just about Luke Bryan, but like in general, because I just love this so much. So we obviously just had our X2 anniversary show. Luke Bryan killed it. It was sold out. It was seriously now I've only been here for 6 years and we missed 2020 because of the pandemic. But it was such an incredible show. The energy was so high. And so I want to tell you about just this really cool story with Luke Bryan. Okay, so fast forward to anniversary show 2023. It was the first time that I've ever had met him. And, he's gracious that we do a radio room. And so he comes backstage and says hello. And here's the thing, like, he's been famous for a really long time, right? And I always say that, like, after this moment, I was like, Luke Bryan knows how to be famous. You know what I mean? So he's going around, he's like, oh, nice to see you. And I go, actually, I said, this is, the first time I've ever met you. He's like, oh, okay. And I go, but I was going to bring you, now remember, this is 2023. I said I was going to bring you a bunch of, Eagles gear since you're an Eagles fan now, since we drafted all your Georgia Bulldogs. So this was June of 2023. The NFL draft was May of 2023. So we had just drafted 7 Georgia Bulldogs, okay? And like that, his face changed. And he was like, oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. And again, I've been fortunate enough that I've been doing this a long time that like I could tell when someone is being professional, being nice, and then when it changes and like they're being real. So like as soon as I brought up Georgia and the Eagles, and I was like, I go, Jalen, what's going to happen with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis? Like, what about Keely Ringo and Kobe Dean? And he's like, oh, you know your stuff. I was like, yeah, I do. Like, this is Philly. Like, we don't play with our sports, especially our Eagles. And so, we were just talking about football and stuff. And so fast forward, probably 3 hours later, the show starts. And a little fun fact about me, anytime I'm at a concert and the artist starts to talk, I always record it, because a lot of those are the times where like they might say something off the cuff, right? So like, for instance, when Taylor Swift did her Eras tour, it was night 1. I think it was Friday, May 10th, 2023. And she was in her surprise song and she's like, guys, she played Gold Rush. And she said, the line in Gold Rush is with my Eagles t-shirt hanging from the door. And she goes, guys, everybody thinks it's Eagles the band and I love them, but it's the Eagles the team. I'm from here. And then literally like 2 months later, she meets Travis and she's like, later Eagles. I have that, and I have that on video, and it blew up. And so when we're at the anniversary show 2023, Luke Bryan starts to talk, I started recording. And so he goes, you know what, Philly, you need to say thank you, Luke. And he's like, okay, say it. And the crowd's like, thank you, Luke. And he's like, do you know why? And the crowd's like, no. And he's like, because your Eagles just drafted my Georgia Bulldogs. And the crowd went crazy. And just to remember, that group of Georgia Bulldogs won back-to-back national championships. So they were like beyond elite, okay? And the crowd goes crazy. The crowd starts doing the Eagles chant, and he's like, oh, I forgot, every time you bring up sports in this town, you people lose your shit. Like, just so real and so cool. And I just thought it was so awesome. And so I posted it and it blew up. Like ESPN, the Eagles, Sports Illustrated, Bleacher Report, like all these organizations reached out to me and they're like, can I use your video? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Just like when I was at Jelly Roll and Post Malone brought out AI and I just happened to be recording, that also blew up, and there's a bunch of outlets who reposted it. So I just love that moment so much. And then sure enough, we go and we win the Super Bowl, right, with this incredible defense with these Georgia players. And when we found out that Luke was going to do the anniversary show again, I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait to see him and show him this video. Now, of course, he's not going to remember it. I mean, he's extremely busy. He meets so many people at any given time. But I was really excited to see him backstage and be able to tell him about this. So obviously Friday morning, like I posted the video of like, let's remember, June 2023. Okay, so fast forward to Friday and we're backstage, and sure enough, who's backstage? Reed Blankenship, which was like so fun. He was the first member of the 2024 Eagles, 2025 Super Bowl team that I met, and really big country music fan. And he was asking all these, he's like, wait, so like country's big in Philly? And I'm like, yeah, man, like XTU is literally one of the biggest stations in the country, let alone Philly. Like, hello. Anyway, so Luke Bryan comes in and he's, doing his pleasantries. I was like, listen, I've been waiting for you to come in here. I got to tell you about this. So I proceed to tell Luke the story. I said, 2 years ago, you're here. I tell you that you're an Eagles fan now. And, you do this whole bit, it blows up, and you manifested the Super Bowl. He's like, I think you manifested it. And I go, no. And I said, listen, I'm like, I give you props so much because he's Luke Bryan, right? So like, not only does he have a million hits, he's on American Idol, like he's a husband, he's a father, but the fact that he remembered that I said something and then 3 hours later he went and delivered it to the crowd and knew that he was in Philly, knew the crowd was going to go crazy. Like, I have just so much respect for that. And so he was just like, no, he's like really grateful. So I said, you like manifested the Super Bowl because you did that. And, we were laughing and stuff. And so sure enough, here we are on Friday. And, we met him at like 6:00 and he doesn't go on until like after 9. And so he sang like 3 or 4 songs. And then sure enough, he like stops down. And we have the video on our Instagram, so you could go check it out. And he was just like, Philly, the Eagles are Super Bowl champions. And it's like, yeah. And he's like, I have a strong affiliation for your football team because I'm a Georgia fan. So he basically like did the whole bit again. And I was like, this is why Luke Bryan is not just a star, but he's a superstar, right? So like, you have to remember that in terms of, I'm losing my train of thought. Celebrity, right? Like there's A-list celebrity, there's celebrities that are like known in their lane. And then there's like superstars that even if you may not know Luke Bryan's songs, like you still know who Luke Bryan is. Blake Shelton's kind of there too, and it's TV, right? It's the fact that, they're on Idol, they're on The Voice, and I just think it's really, that it's really cool that, like, he is that famous, and he's still, even, he hosts the CMAs, and he still did all the interviews, like, went through, did all the radio interviews, and to me that, I just have so much respect for that because he's so busy. He has so much to do. There's so many artists that don't do that anymore, and he does. And so not only did he take the time to meet us, but he listened to what I said, remembered it, and then went and delivered the bit. You know what I mean? And like had the whole crowd eating at the palm of your hands. And listen, I'm very, 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 very fortunate. I go to a lot of concerts. I see a ton of concerts, and there are a lot of stars who do not do that, who don't say hello, don't acknowledge where they are, don't embrace it. But there's a lot of stars in the last couple years that have really understood that, like, being in Philly, Kelsey Ballerini, she was at the Wells Fargo Center the day after we won the Super Bowl and was smart enough that they went and bought a Jalen Hurts jersey, and she came out in a Jalen Hurts jersey. And I asked her about it when I just interviewed her at the ACMs, and she was like, that was a big day. It's like, she got it. Jelly Roll obviously was talking about it. And then you had Post Malone who wore, who always talks about how he's a Cowboys fan. And so he comes out in, he has Kelly Green, like a baseball shirt, like Kelly Green sleeves and the Eagles, the band. So he had a green shirt on and it said the Eagles. And then when people were teasing him, he's like, I have my Eagles shirt on. Like, so clever, so genius. And, there are some artists that just don't engage like that. They'll be like, what's up? Or there's a lot of artists that play at Freedom Mortgage and they're like, what's up, Camden? And it's like, no, this is your Philadelphia tour date. Obviously, it's New Jersey. There's people from Delaware, maybe even people from New York or Maryland that are there. But like when you play the Freedom Mortgage Pavilion, it's your Philly tour date. And a lot of people obviously, like, they don't get that you could walk from New Jersey to Philadelphia and vice versa. Like, I remember when I, first started meeting people in Nashville and they're like, what do you mean you could walk to New Jersey? I'm like, yeah. Like, literally, the Ben Franklin Bridge has a walking path. You could walk over. And so some people don't get it. In fact, last summer, when Sam Hunt was here and we did the radio room, I was like, Sam, make sure you say, what's up, Philly? What's up? And he was like so scared. He's like, oh, okay, but it says Camden, New Jersey. I'm like, yeah, but that's just like where the venue is. Like you're in Philly. Say, but I'm like, Keith Urban is from Australia and he knows to say Philly, Jersey, Delaware, like come on. So anyway, I just wanted to tell that kind of fun story about Luke and how it was cool. And then obviously, you know, the story about George Burge, where I interviewed George Burge for the very first time in August of 2023 at Tidal Wave, which doesn't even exist anymore. And it was before Mind on You even came out. And I was like, oh, okay, like, who's this guy, right? And so there wasn't much about him. So I just like looked him up on his Instagram and I saw him singing for Dak Prescott and he was so excited. And so when I interviewed him, first I had to explain, because you're in Atlantic City, New Jersey, so a lot of people who aren't from here don't realize that like this is Philly, right? And so I'm like, yeah, like the Jersey Shore is part of Philly, and like I don't know if we could do this interview because you're a Cowboys fan, you know, to be funny. And he's like, but I went to high school with Nick Foles, and I was like, what? Now this was obviously 2023, so it was after the first Super Bowl. And so I've seen and interviewed George Burge a bunch of times since then. And like, now we have like a little bit. I'm like, Nick, what's my favorite fun fact about you? And he's like, that I went to high school with Nick Foles. And get this, Nick Foles has now DM'd him. And you know how Nick Foles has like the dad season merch? He was like, hey man, like would love to send you stuff. And I said to George on Saturday, I'm like, not that I'm taking credit for it. And George was laughing. He's like, no, like you kind of did. No one ever connected me and Nick Foles before until like you started talking about it. So I was like, you're welcome. So anyway, shout out to all our new Eagles fans, specifically Luke Bryan and George Burge. And thank you for all of XTU Nation for most of the incredible show. And hope you enjoyed a little behind the scenes. Go Birds.